Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thanks a lot for joining us. We're here for a wee bit of Go Fuck Friday nights. Now, first of all, apologies. We've set a new record tonight. I'm a clean hour late. I'm behind, and it's very much Go Fuck Friday night in full effect for me. I was otherwise disposed. Something that was meant to end at 7:30, then was meant to end at quarter to 8. So I moved the stream back a little bit, and then in reality, it ended at 8:30. So I can only apologise, but we're here, and was hopeful we were going to get a full kind of bar, a full kind of lounge area set up here for our Friday night, and we'll see. The doors open, we'll see who pops in. But returning again from last week, we've got McBride Ace on with us. McBride, good to see you.
Hello, that intro is absolutely brilliant, by the way. That is so good. Obviously, I've sampled the music so far, but I seen that coming up and I was like, what is going on here? Honestly, it's that guy's lineup with the kettle R. That is absolutely fucking brilliant, I must admit. So anyway, thanks for the invite again. Obviously, if nobody else turns up, then everybody will just need to listen to me and you. So there we go.
And we've got a debutant in the lounge with us as well. He's one of the co-hosts of the much fabled Sorare podcast, A View from the Dugout. It is the one and only Russ. Russ, good to see you.
How we doing, gents?
Hello, Russ.
I came when I arrived in the I suppose the lobby there. I was like, if I just entered like the Pink Panther set or something. I was like, what's going on with the piano? And then it got distinctly cooler. So, how we doing, everyone?
Oh, good, mate. Thanks for having us on. And yeah, I'm glad you liked the intro. We're having our little tweak on it for next week again, but it's a work in progress. But I'm glad you liked it. A lot of thought and effort went into it again. Fist bumps to Charlie, who makes all the magic happen here. But yeah, fist bumps on arrival to everyone that is joining us live as well. Great to see you all. And same as last week, I kind of thought, this morning before kind of prepping for the show or whatever, like, what are the main things kind of going on this week? What have we seen announced and what can we kind of chew over? Now, with us kind of kicking off a little bit later, I'm aware that we might all become a lot more time sensitive than otherwise, especially for all of us. We're in Scotland, so we're all on the same time zone. So we'll see how it shakes out, and we'll see about because it's Thanksgiving in America, so they're all filling their faces right now. We might get some of them on their toilet break when they're sitting with their phone on their knees for half an hour, maybe popping into the live chat, or maybe even crashing the party as well. I can see Jimmer and Andy Black definitely phoning us in from the toilet, maybe. I don't know if they've got the links right enough, but some of the things, guys, was kind of centered around the Christmas kind of vibe. We had the little advent calendar thing half announced the other day, and then today, of course, everyone's been chatting about the deposit incentive we've had today. The first 3,000 people or so, or whatever. I fell for it, hook, line, and sinker, and I thought, sack it. I had a few cards I wanted to buy anyway, and I thought, let's just do it and get a wee box to open up for tonight. So I've got that. But I guess, Russ, with it being your debut, mate, interested to hear your thoughts, feelings, opinions, any of the above, on the little bit of Christmas activity we've had this week.
Yeah, I'm a wee bit behind, to be honest with you. I've not been doing loads of content and stuff and things. You know what like it is. And I suppose I've not done the pod for, I don't know, a wee while now as well. So, yeah, I suppose I'm kind of being very reactive to Sorare at the moment. I'm not probably being as sort of like proactive as you guys and things. So I'm kind of being reactive to everything. But I did see, obviously, the advent calendar. I could be mistaken, but it's not been revealed what it actually is it?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to work out what it is. I think it's still to be revealed like in the next 2 days or something, isn't it? So but we've got shapes of
different sizes.
Yeah, some of them are like player. I'm just waiting to get it on screen now. There we go. Some of them are kind of, like player card shaped, and some of them are like box shaped. So, I think the first thought everyone has is this going to be a taste of what we've just had already? Some sort of buy incentive every day of the month, essentially? Is that what it's going to be? Or is there maybe going to be some sort of in-game achievements or targets? Like, my first thoughts on this, I was saying this to Harry after the deadline show, because I think that's when we maybe got it, or we kind of examined it further, certainly, but I think that these are cards and these are boxes, and I'm hopeful the boxes that are here, you maybe need to like do something in Rivals that day or something, like get one of the boxes from Rivals, perhaps. Could be something as basic enough as that, and you get one of these things opened up, and it might be like buy a card for the other days to maybe then get a card, might be something about that. But yeah, I don't know any more than that, Russ. I think it is just, we're waiting on the timer to tick out for details.
Yeah, I think you're right. Just with the shape of the boxes and stuff, I thought maybe, like you said about Rivals, win a Rivals game or something, and then you get to open box 2, or it's probably not going to be as simple as that. Let's be honest, but I thought with the bigger shaped ones that they sort of, how many is there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. Is that something maybe a little bit juicier for everybody to win, or I don't know.
Yeah. Joe, I've just noticed, Quinny, and I've just noticed just now, it must be the beer. There's no...
Cheers, by the way, everyone.
Yeah. Cheers. There's no number 25, so my thinking automatically rolls over to it's something that you've got to do every day, and then once you get to Christmas Day, then you get some sort of prize on it. I hadn't thought about it because my first reaction was, yeah, it'll be some sort of promotion. Anyway, that's what everybody's thinking. But yeah, it's quite a cool thing, and obviously you've got the different sort of figures and everything on it. But yeah, it'll be quite interesting to see what it actually relates to. But it looks to me as if it's kind of building up a bit towards the last day. So maybe if you complete all the different tasks or whatever it is, then you'll get 10 essence.
It's a good one, isn't it?
You've got to buy 10 super rares, McBride, to get them.
Okay, that's fine. Well, they're not that expensive, so that's fine.
Yeah, they've just lowered the minimum bid on Super Rare today to like $10 or something, £8, I think, maybe. So maybe not as hard now, you know. I was going to say, McBride, see, when you said that, the whole there's no 25 or onwards, really. On the 25th, we know, or the game week that is the 25th, we know that there's a special weekly. So
yeah,
that makes me think maybe they're somewhat tied together. And maybe, I don't know, because it did say like neon. So maybe like these cards are like neon cards and you need one of them to play in the special weekly, maybe. And that's kind of that's maybe part of this, which then makes me think that they did know what they were going to do for the special weekly, and we were wrong for saying that they hadn't worked it out yet. So they just said, "TBC, we'll work on it later." You know, the plan is in action. Maybe
that's
could it be sharp numbers?
Yeah,
sharp numbers, maybe.
Yeah,
that's right. I totally forgot that they've actually got the special weekly that's not actually been announced yet. So that definitely makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Actually, the Christmas period, I love the Christmas period, obviously, in general, family-wise and everything, but, just the actual, that period where people are off and you get the English Premier League and the Scottish games and everything, and kind of feels quite special, I think, in the UK, because, a lot of leagues take a break, so it's it's not just us that's watching the games, it's somebody's actually watching Scottish games for a reason other than just being Celtic or Rangers fans or whatever, so... I think that I'm really looking forward to it, and this looks quite cool. Obviously, it's kind of hard to get excited about it until you see what's actually in it. So I think if you start opening a few things and there's some good stuff in there, then that will start to build a bit of excitement. And that was my problem with the calendar, if you know what I mean. It's all right, it's a surprise, but until you get to that point, you don't know what the surprise is. So yeah, but it ties into the Christmas theme really well, which is good.
I like it. Like I mentioned to you guys, and I posted it anyway, so it's not really a secret or anything like that, but I treated myself to 2 wee wonder kids that I'd been kind of eyeing up half anyway, and you're just waiting for that excuse with some of these guys. And I was in the kind of spirit of, I did a goalkeeper video on the channel, if anyone's caught it in the live chat, fist bumps, thanks very much. But when you really look at the backup goalkeeper market and that as a trading strategy, again, me and Harry were saying something similar to each other after the deadline show, but or maybe it may even been on the show, but the backup keeper, you need to make that decision of your shelf and money, however much they cost, you are just sitting it to the side and you're waiting for it to grow and become a starting keeper one day, essentially. So it's kind of that same kind of spirit where it's just buy them and forget you own about them until they become somewhat useful. And the first guy I got, which was top of my list for this year because he's not had cards available until this season, is this Kaiki guy. This is basically Savio Mark II, as far as I'm concerned. Sorare-wise, I've never seen him play, so I've got no idea what type of player he is. But bought by Man City, pumped out on loan straight away to Holland, barely getting a kick of the ball, and then next year he's going to be at Girona and he's going to be brilliant or something like that, So one of those ones. I really hope they get a picture because I don't want to hang on. I really hope it's a rookie for a start, but I really don't want it to be in this packet forever if it is going to be a guy that has a long and fun career, So he was the first one I went and got. And the second one, you might know, he was very popular on the timeline before he made his move out of La Masia and left Barcelona in the summer for another prestigious academy in Europe. And that is Mikhail Fay, who left Barca for Rennes. And he's maybe getting a little bit more of a kick of the ball, although not by much. But this guy, I don't know if you've seen him, but this guy was like phenomenal at all the age groups. Like, I couldn't believe he was a centre back. I thought he was a striker. The way people were speaking about him, he was like banging in free kicks and like dribbling up the pitch and all that, and just being like an absolute tanky boy. But he's a defender apparently. So Mikhail Fay, that's how you say it. 2 wee wonder kids to get the wee box in.
Good luck.
You think so? I hope so.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, it's a good chance to buy something that you actually want to buy. Like, that I was kind of like not lucky, but I had some credits rolling over, so I used the credits to buy the card, and then obviously you get more credits after that. And I thought it was kind of generous as well, because I got the 20 quid of credits, but it's 80% discount. So you buy something at like 25 quid, then basically you spent a fiver. So I thought it was quite a fun like promo. And despite the XP being terrible, I bought a Vinicius Junior Limited. So I just treated it as like a bit of fun. It wasn't like, it's going to be a brilliant card. I'm just going to buy somebody for the under 23s. VJ's injured. He's dropped a wee bit. I want one, and that was it. So yeah. Do you think you're going to get the $3,000? The thing is, when you get $3,000, you've got to spend now $3,000 to get the 50%.
Yeah, that's true, isn't it? But these things don't expire, as far as I'm aware. You know what I mean? So you just sit on that and wait for.
I think it's 14 days. You need to get into a biscuit tin if you get the 50 per the $3,000.
Wow.
Have a chat with the missus.
I'll have a chat with the missus. Let's see what we get. You got 20 quid. I wonder what I get. Yeah, that's all right. 37 quid.
That's really good. I think that's the third rung up.
So that'll be $47, you think, then, eh?
Yeah.
That's all right, yeah.
60%. So, like, that's pretty good, isn't it? Like, if you buy something at like 60 quid, you're getting like £23 off or something. So that's.
So that was 37. And, oh, by the way, what did I think I spent 37 on these two? On the button. That's kind of funny, isn't it? Is that good or bad? I'm not sure. No, I don't think it's bad. It can't be bad. I've kind of got my money back essentially, but I need to spend it on site. Kind of, that's fine, I suppose, isn't it? That works out all right.
Two guys,
was that the first 3,000 people then?
Was that?
Was that the first 3,000 people then that got that you made a? Is it done now? Is it expired?
No, I think there's like it tells you somewhere. I'll see if I can find the page.
I think it's still going. It's like the first 3,000 that qualify. So you had to deposit, but then you had to spend at least half a year deposit on an instant buy or an auction. So it wasn't just like a fast finger first to deposit. You had to actually spend it as well. So, but the one thing I would say, it worked quite well with instant buys, because I looked at Rodrigo and I thought, my first port of call was I wanted a Rodrigo, and because a few people had bought him, his instant buy had went up from like 20 quid to 26. Because obviously as they go up, they kind of force it up. So I thought, it's not really worth it anymore. I could just like pick one up for like 18 quid in the secondary or whatever. But it's definitely if it's a way of in some way getting the market moving, getting a bit of liquidity in or whatever. I know it's for instant buying for auction and stuff, but it definitely has worked. So.
I couldn't find it on site, but Mikey Baston's got it there, so it's not even halfway yet. But again, it only went out like 2-3 hours ago. I don't know. Actually, I've lost track of time with the night I've had, but it's only been out for a couple of hours. It's not like something we knew about since Thursday. It's definitely post deadline. So I dare say it was like as if it was like 3 o'clock they'd done it. It was, I would guess, like 5 to 7. I can't remember now. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, so it's not bad turnaround, I suppose. But yeah, I've heard some stories about people that deposited yesterday and stuff like that, and we're just like, damn it,
it's
Black Friday on a freebie.
It's Black Friday, isn't it? Like, I mean, everybody knows it's Black Friday. Like, everything like I've seen, I've been involved with, are like doing promotions. So, like, I know I'm chief moaner at times and stuff like that, but you can't find fault with that, right? They're trying to do a promotion, and obviously part of that suit them because they run the business, but it's Black Friday, so if you don't like it, then just don't deposit any money. Like,
yeah.
like it's fuck off. No, but I mean, like honestly, like I know there's a lot of like chatter on the timeline and stuff, and a lot of it's really quite genuinely like fair comment, you know. And then there's just some stuff, and you're just like, come on, man, like what age are you? 10?
So any other theories or whatever on if it's not a buy thing, like for this calendar, the boxes and the players we just looked at there, and let's say the rivals thing it is or it isn't. Let's just say that, you know, other than that, is there anything kind of? I don't think there's anything obvious essentially that it could be, you know. So they've got to be coming up with something. They kind of, you know, maybe it is just buy bonuses. I don't know, but I think at this stage, I'd be happy to believe that they have come up with something, because I didn't really see this kind of thing happening, you know, the way they've done it, and we're kind of still reading between the lines with some of it, 'cause it's yet to be announced. But any thoughts on what else they might be, they could ask you to do in terms of redeeming stuff or unlocking stuff on site?
It's a tough one. I mean, I think like with the ones with the cards, the player like silhouette on it, then that's going to have to be related to like buying something, or maybe at that point they'll have like a couple of wee special editions or something, Christmas editions or something coming out, you know, it's that promotional thing. There are ones, I can't remember seeing back to the picture, but there was a picture of like Essence and then there was credits. So maybe it's like on different days, like if you pick something up or whatever, then you do that Essence promo, etc. Struggle to think what else you can do like over and above that, you know, like maybe it'd be good if you just keep participating every couple of days, like you get the benefit of participating, you know, like a kind of promotional thing that keeps you engaged. You know, if you're still in the race, then, you know, you get to that point where maybe there's something that you'll be given as a special card or whatever. But we're all speculating, aren't we? Like, so until you actually see, maybe you just open it day one, you're like, yes, it's a chocolate. It's a normal advent calendar. Like.
Could very much see that. That's a funny one. I was quite caught off guard by the deposit bonus thing. Like, I just didn't see it coming, you know. And I'm not sure if there's been much negativity around. I think it's probably been quite mixed. I think it's a wee bit just of people just want to see instant reaction, I suppose, to feedback. Whereas like some stuff is like just firmly like been planned and like organized and whatever, where they can't just U-turn and put the handbrake on some stuff. They just got to let it run and adjust in time. So I say, when I see something like this, I just think, oh, that's interesting. And then when I kind of looked into it, and it was the main thing that got me going actually was that not that many people had done it. I think when the first number I seen was like 600. It's like, oh, only 600 people had done it. And I was within the first hour to 2 hours in the Telegram group I've got for the members. And I thought, wow, I'll definitely get it then if I buy one, because part of the fear with something that's limited availability is that you miss out. And you just think, oh, well, I'm no rushing for that, so I'm not going to get it. But then when you've got time and you see like, oh, easy, you know, like I can just swoop in and get that. It makes it so anyway a bit more attainable. So that was what swayed it for me, was just that I could do it. You know, it wasn't necessarily anything to do with the stipulations around it, or even ultimately the 3,000 part of it. It was just the hope of like even just what happened there. I suppose that is good. I kind of just essentially got 2 cards for nothing, I think, then, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a bit of fun. I suppose they've got credits and stuff. They've got to be careful as well, because if they give out too much, then it kind of unbalances the market, or, you know, it's like just giving away stuff for free. So, yeah. But then back to the calendar thing, when you think about an advent calendar, it's like more like, so you're getting something good out of each day. You know, obviously, they're not just going to give away 24 good things every day, but it might be that if you do something, you'll get something good. So it's all quite interesting. But I really don't mind it. I mean, sometimes you get people like coming on and it's like, oh yeah, it's another promotion to get us to buy cards. Like, yeah, that's it. The overall frustration is not coming for the fact that there's a promotion running. It's coming from other stuff. Frustrations building up with classic mode, or prices going down, or becoming harder, or Essence becoming harder to get. That's not the problem. The problem is not that they're running the promotion. The problem's the other stuff. So it's interesting. But yeah, we get through Christmas or whatever. Then hopefully by that point Nicholas is not sitting with a vino in his hands going, yeah, stars will be stars last year, so what we're going to say this year, like, fucking, like, just make something else up. But they'll, you know, it's all been worked on in the background with, like, the announcement of what's going to happen for February. It's the only thing I'd said to you, Quinn, the only thing I'm worried about is kind of like the actual stars will be stars in the top 5 leagues. What's going to happen when it comes towards the end of the season? Because you've got this aggressive model where most of the value in the cards utility wise is kind of at the start when you buy them. But when people used to buy cards in the past, you would be buying a card and you'd be looking ahead for a few years, or maybe some of the young guys saying for the whole career. But now, obviously, you buy a card and, like, you know, at the end of the season, they're not going to be worth much. But that is a knock-on consequence to all the classic competitions as well, because they're reliant on cards being given out. So we get to like March, April, or whatever, and you're like, well, what price are even the stars going to be? You know, so you win the classic competition, you beat 400 million gazillion people in April, and you get you a win. You open your cards and you go, yes, it's Bruno Fernandes. Like, shite, he's only worth 75 quid for a rare. Like, I mean, that was been Trent. I see a Trent rare, a Trent Alexander-Arnold rare went for 90 quid the other day, you know, so that we're kind of losing that element of excitement from the actual value of the cards. I think that's fair to say, right? Like, you know, what was really good about it in the past was that if you won like one of the old tier 2s or whatever, you're going, that's worth at least like 100 quid or whatever. So you might not like the card that you got, but yes, I've got a win. And it wasn't easy to get up then, but you got rewarded properly. So I think that's where the whole thing's fallen down a wee bit just now. It's just that excitement's not there because people are opening Essence crafts and stuff and getting stuff worth like 2 Freddos.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think you're right with that. Do you know what? I remember a long, long time ago when I remember first stumbling on Sorare, and the first few people that I stumbled on, obviously you weren't, I don't think you were making really much content back then, McBride, but Quinny was, and John Nellis was as well at that point, making lots of Sorare stuff. And I remember when I stumbled across this game, almost being in disbelief of, obviously I played Football Index at quite a deep level and Footstock and things like that, but I remember actually when I seen the prize, you know, the prize value, and you're looking at it and people were absolutely astonished that in their eyes a digital Panini card could be worth, you know, I remember like showing Alban Lafont's my prime example. I think that's probably the most expensive card I ever sold at $3,000 that I bought for about 1,200 or something. But I remember just being in absolute utter disbelief that something so big could be won twice a week. And it really, I think back 21, 22, when, you know, you guys were absolutely flying and stuff, and you'd got in probably, I don't know, maybe about 4 or 5 months earlier than someone like me. And I played probably more at the rare as opposed to the super rares and the uniques that you guys were at. But I remember just every weekend being so excited. I remember being up at 4 a.m., 3 a.m., checking for auctions on my phone. That never happens now, never ever, you know. But I think for me, the main thing that's probably hurting the game at the moment is just the excitement factor's gone. You know, I'm looking there, I put in, what, I don't know, 22 teams this weekend, mostly rare, and I've got some limited, which are just for fun. And I'm looking and I'm actually not desperately checking my phone to see if I was 10th. You know, I think I was 12th in a competition last week, and I got a premium rare box for 12th. You know, I'm looking going 12th 2-3 years ago, and I'm looking going, God, I could be winning 300 quid this weekend. And 300 quid's quite a lot of money for most people, you know. And it brought, for me, lots of people at that point away from the traditional, do you know what, I'll go and put a tenner on a 7-to-1 coupon. Do you know what I mean? And wait for it to be bust. And we've now got this point where I just think the excitement is away for so many people. This promotion, though, that you've mentioned, I didn't realise it was 3,000 people. $50, is that right? $50 a buy-in?
So you need, I thought it was dollars, so I was like, oh, it'll be about 40 quid. But when I went to do it, it said £50. You know,
£50, right?
We went for the pound. So that's the same with the sign-up bonus. I kind of say it in my videos and that when it's for like beginner videos, but $50, pounds, euros is what they give you, so they kind of translate all the currencies to make round numbers.
Yeah.
And then, but when you deposit, you need to spend half of it, and then you get the box. So when I seen that, I thought, right, those are anything for 25 quid I would want anyway, and then end up spending a wee bit more just because of the guys I went for. So was it 37 or something? But yeah, that's the way to flip it.
I suppose there's 150,000 then going in the. Well, there's 150,000, let's say, going in the wallets, arguably in the wallets, which then people will choose to spend. If that's generating Sorare directly some money, maybe some people won't spend all of that money exclusively, in the sort of the auction or the instant buy market. There might be some of that filters into or the spare change might start to filter into the secondary market. At the end of the day, £150,000 is probably a good shot in the arm. But I think, you guys mentioned last week, and I know that we've done it as well in the past, the game's just lacking liquidity. There's just too many products on the shelves and not enough customers in the shop.
Yeah. That's what happens to the prices when that's the situation, isn't
Yeah.
it? So it's nothing necessarily wrong with the game or wrong with the cards in that regard. It is just a fact of like, you can't give people money, and you can't pull people out of thin air either, so that's then kind of the strength of some of it as well, isn't it? It's not always down to negative sentiment towards the game or players. I don't know. I think the super rares and uniques are definitely different because those segments of the game are like very depressed right now, let's say, in terms of just the whole model of it, but that aside, because I get why a lot of people kind of categorize me that way in terms of like super rare stuff like that, right? Because I've been so heavily entrenched with them. But the big thing with me in super rare, I would never, until this recent change, or until probably this, other than the Celtic team, I wouldn't openly say I was, and I am a real super rare player. But it's just always one of these things where it's been my fascination of get those cards if I can, and because of reasons and beliefs on X, Y, and Z that we don't need to talk about today, if that makes sense. And thinking back to what you're talking about there, Russ, I remember those times super well, you know what I mean? Where you would win 0.4 ETH in a weekend and then, look through the calendar and just have a guess at what the price of ETH could have been on any given day. It was always pretty fun. Especially when you hung on to a wallet for maybe a week or two and ETH had a good week or two as well, So there was lots of great stuff that went on. And I've always been a big kind of regular kind of withdrawer and through stuff like that, and that's definitely missing. And especially if you were used to that kind of side of the game, it not being around anymore, it's definitely that kind of, don't know if it's quite an elephant in the room, but I feel more like it's like a spectre, like a ghost, where it's just kind of in the ether, pardon the expression, just just kind of around everything. So yeah, I definitely agree with that kind of loss of edge. I don't know if edge is quite the word, because edge gets used in a few different ways, isn't it? But that kind of pop on the game in that way.
It used to be really exciting, and do you know what? Obviously, I think most of the diehard people that certainly 21 users, 22 users, and stuff. We're up, in the main. I think probably a lot of us are all still here and playing. And I know now, I look at my own gallery and stuff, and like that, I've got specific, I've got my Dundee United team just because I go to Tannadice every year. I'm a season ticket holder. So, I've got my team there. And then, I've now got Celtic classic team, and I've got a Rangers limited team and in the new and in season and stuff. But I think, it's that real excitement of checking your phone every 5 minutes to see if you were in contention, and then, or getting a text from your mates. I look and think, I think I onboarded probably about in 2022, 23, I think I onboarded about 20 odd of my mates, all fantasy football league players and stuff up here in Dundee area in Scotland. And they all came on, probably, I don't know if that would be classed as your sort of stereotypical user or not, but they all probably came on with between a £500 and maybe £1,200 at that time, what they thought was investment. And what I have seen though over the last sort of year, with obviously as we've spoken about, and the elephant in the room of classic card prices just absolutely just falling through the floor. I think that's taken a bit of the oomph and a wee bit of the. I think they're all I can only speak from my own experience in these guys that I speak to, but I think they're a bit more reluctant now to put more money in, just because they've seen the sort of the gallery valuation drop. And I think they're now looking and going, I know they don't all play it to get like their money back. A lot of them do play it for the fun aspect of it and stuff. But I think, like everything else, if you had $1,000 in it and now you're looking and it's like worth £100, you're actually looking and going, well, okay, it's worth £100. I can take that on the chin. But you look and go, but I can only win £20, this weekend. I think the glory days feel a long, long way away, and I just don't know what they can do. I don't know if you guys have got any super duper ideas for rescuing Classic, but I think that's probably the main thing that needs to be done.
Yeah. Classic's hard, isn't it? Like, I think the problem is there's a lot of cards being minted, so those cards are there, and obviously, what do you do with them? It's pretty difficult. But then there's been loads of changes, and I think they've not really been that good for Classic either. For example, like there's no cap modes anymore, and people get more engaged with cap modes. So, for example, this weekend there was the cap 220, and like I actually quite enjoyed that. So when I was doing my video and stuff, I went into the cap mode and I was going on the spreadsheet and I was filtering to averages, and I was trying to look for guys who could beat the average. And all of a sudden, it wasn't just right, who's the best player that I can play in that position. It was who's the best under 44 average that I can play in that position. And that brought back in an element of scouting and stuff that I think that a lot of the classic modes now are just become who can hit 550 points or whatever, or who's got the PSV stack, or who's got the 15% PSV Joey Veerman, or that type of stuff. And there's definitely room for that mode in Classic, but you've got to have the modes where it's about scouting and going to look for those gems or those guys that have got the good weekends. So I think that the in-season, I play a lot in-season and I've done really well with it. So there's nothing wrong with in-season. That's not the problem with the game. It's the interesting thing there is that that's bringing scarcity back into play because there's only so many in-season cards. But then when you go away from that, then like there's so much money that's been moved from Classic to in-season that actually the Classic's pretty difficult. So, people were kind of enjoying it when Essence was going well, and it was obviously not really like sustainable, etc. So I think there's a rebalance needed. I think it can work, but it needs to be rebalanced, and also you need to bring back the modes that people actually enjoy playing. So, have a permanent specialist, or have a permanent cap 240, maybe just call it something else so that people don't think they're winning the threshold, whatever. But like actually scouting that kind of that guy that's got the 20 average that's going to hit a decisive and stuff, that's a lot of the part of the game. And the problem with divisions just now is it's just like, Division 4, it's like, yes, we need to get out of Division 4. Why don't we buy? Like, I see the guy sent me a champion Division 5 lineup, and he came like he'd been promoted, and like Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo, and he's like basically the cards you'd expect to be up the top. So I know that not all those guys should be in there, but that's not, I don't think, the way they should be working divisions. Like you could have like a couple of divisions up the top and then have the caps, and then just say it doesn't matter if you get promoted or relegated this weekend, you can enter the cap 220 or you can enter the cap 250, and then you're looking at that weekend and you're looking at fixtures and players and who's going to get decisive or whatever, and then it just changes things. So it's getting a bit boring. And then, as you said, with the prizes, that's definitely an issue. It's kind of like the less is more type thing. Like the drive's been to get as many people in as possible and build the amount of users on the site. The amount of users on the sites went up, but the actual supply and demand hasn't worked. So they need to address supply and demand.
So I think all this kind of stuff really does tie into each other pretty well, because I think like this year we've seen that they stopped a bunch of licenses, and I think the alternative to that was scrapping limited, which I think they're, that's just impossible at this stage, really, isn't it? Because like you say, supply is, like we were kind of mentioning earlier, like there's more cards than there is buyers, essentially. That's why prices move down. But so they've already made like as big a step as they can make, I think, to try and like curb and limit new issues per season. Obviously today, and it's kind of part of the kind of had to double check what the kind of main kind of points were I had thought of, because my head was like, going all over the place a minute ago with stuff to talk about with this. But we've seen today that like Rennes have returned, and we've seen Nordischland, the addition of them, so the very first time in a long time we've had new licenses. This is the completion of the French league, fine. But I think like really in a lot of ways, like you say, McBride in season is fine, and then Classic, like it's the same kind of problem as like Super Rare to an extent of like there's not enough good prizes to make the overall competition like ferocious, where even if you did finish 40th, you still could end up with a juicy tier 2 like back in the daytimes, compared to like like if you don't finish in the proper nosebleeds, like you kind of know you're going to be somewhat onto a busted flush in some way, shape or form, but I think the main thing that changes that is just general growth on the game, because otherwise everything is pretty much as lean and mean as you would want it. And I know what you're saying about extra game modes and stuff like that, and I'm very much of the same mind, but I do think like they were quite clear when I've mentioned this before about the change of All-Star and all the rest of it, but like the prize pool now is like laser focused, like with as much density as they can give it. Like that's the kind of design purpose of divisions and all that, is to, rather than it being like Asia and America and champ and challenger and pros and then specialists and then underdogs and then all the cap modes, it's just like all the champion cards are here, all the challenger cards are there, and all the contender cards are there. So I think that was one of the main agendas for that. So adding things on dilute that, and if we're already kind of like, oh, those divisions are pretty shallow anyway, it is only going to take from that, because in terms of just card rewards, they kind of magic them up without bringing on a Nordischland. And I know Nordischland doesn't really change the price pools or anything like that, right? Decent club, got a good network and all that. They do bring through good players and whatever, right? But that's the only thing they can do, is add in clubs, which they've just kind of curbed a bit. And I think the curb was probably quite smart, the main removal of the second tier top 5 leagues, essentially. We have seen Burnley return, in fact, as well, I'm reminded. But I think those, again, it's a conversation we've had 1,000 times, I think, at this point. But I think those divisions, if they knew they were going to do that, they probably wouldn't have done limited, But I think both of those things solve the same problem. And when they came too close together, it's a thing. So I think like, yeah, they're kind of on. They're doing their best for that. It's just some of these things, just time needs to run out a little bit, or not run out, but pan out, where you just need to wait a year where there's actually been less cards going out than the year before, once or twice, and then as long as the game's fun and people are winning cool stuff, because like all the main stuff that all of us are interested in aside, like the one-off stuff they've got is legit unbeatable. Like nobody else has prizes like they do, for like actual fairy tale stuff that nobody, we kind of say, oh, I've won it 4 times and stuff. Like, it's never going to be that kind of thing. I've also been in a lucky position to play at Anfield just by invite, which is great. But as long as the game's fun and as long as the game does have like some juicy stuff somewhere, like eventually some of these problems do kind of just balance themselves out, as long as they're well monitored, I think. And like, see, I think all these things kind of all tie into each other, I'm really glad to see Rennes back on. I think Nordischland's a good get as well. And I'm not sure there's many other licenses out there that you would be like that excited about, but it's nice to see. The French league is now completed. And again, like tying into this kind of stuff, like I suppose, is like French Ligue 1 a competition we see, I don't think it'll happen this year, but is that a competition we could see next season to join the other free and champion, leaving Serie A the ugly duckling of the 5? I'll stop talking now because I've been ranting.
Yeah. I think there's already a sort of league license was given out or whatever for the French league, but then Sorare never got the actual EPL, and somebody bid like extreme amounts, and then they eventually got it because that was just pie in the sky stuff, and they still got the license. So yeah, I mean, it'd be good to have that. I get the point about like the sort of the segregation element and stuff of it. It's just that it's lost some of the kind of mystique of like you would maybe go and get somebody who could do pretty well and win you those big star players. The under 23 is still probably the mode where it's the all-star mode. You can still win a Bellingham or a Haaland or whatever by buying guys from other sort of leagues, etc. But again, it's low down the priority because there's no sort of real cash comp to it. So I think that the supply and demand thing's definitely the problem. So it's how you fix that. Maybe they just went too far with some of the leagues. Like, do we really need the Bundesliga too? Do we really need La Liga high promotion? Do we really need those types of leagues? You know, if they'd added the English Championship and had an English Championship contest, you could see why that would be really good, because there's a huge fan base for that and like the UK and stuff like that. But a lot of those leagues just kind of almost detracted from the value of the top players, because you could get a cheaper version of the guy who's averaging 50 or 60 or 70 or whatever. So there'll be some refinement of that, and I really don't mind them adding on those other clubs and stuff just now. Like, I don't think that's really that relevant. It's more like, what's the plan for this? You know, we can't be in a scenario where we go to next year, the fan base actually grows, but prices continue to fall because the fan base and the users are growing, but they're just minting cards too quickly for the user base. So, you know, after this season's cards go into Classic as well, and what's the solution to that? So maybe there'll still be some other tough decisions to make at some point. I don't know. Some people really want Saudi to be added or whatever. I don't know. If Saudi come along and say, look, we want our league added and we're going to chuck in some money and we'll sponsor it, then fair enough. But I don't really see why you would kind of add it in just now. You could add it into some of the leagues that aren't the champ leagues, and it wouldn't have as big an effect. So it's all quite sort of interesting stuff. But there's a basic problem just now, and the problem is that there's too many cards circulating. So there's no real, that's hard to get, or I really want that guy and he's really good, but I'm going to have to pay, or I'm going to have to wait for it. It's just like, do you want that card? Yeah, you can just go and buy it. And that doesn't feel as niche. Yeah. It doesn't feel as niche. I feel as if I'm playing normal fantasy football. It feels as if I'm playing like fan team or something, you know, where I go and I just buy a couple of guys and like their low prices or whatever. And all right, that pays my entry fees for a certain amount of time, but feels like I'm pissing in the wind. Like I need to get it perfect for that weekend or whatever. Whereas in the past, it was kind of almost like if you had the cards, those cards had a scarcity power, where actually they were quite scarce. So you would pick that Brighton stack on a Friday night and they've conceded, but there was only like a couple other people who picked that, and if you got it right, you would actually get yourself in a good position, because there weren't 100 Brighton stacks. There was only 3 or 4 Brighton stacks. Whereas now you look at Challenger and you're like, yes, I've got a good score or whatever. And there's like 40 PSV stacks and there's 40 guys who have got Messi and Puig. And so that's been kind of like lost control of a bit. So
yeah,
how do you fix that? I don't know. But the people buying in just now is not really the hugest of the problems, because I think the people, if they buy in just now, they'll kind of see what they're getting into. The biggest problem is the people who've spent 100 quid for Rico Puig or whatever, limited, and it's the end of the season, he's worth a tenner, and they're looking at that's the biggest problem. It's that the sentiment carrying forward of the guys that are no happy and getting on to Twitter, oh, you're selling more cards, oh, it's another promotion, and oh, I've lost fucking 90% of my gallery value. That's the biggest issue just now, because when people buy in just now, they know what they're buying into. So hopefully that will flush its way out, if that makes sense.
So do we think we get a French specialist next year then?
Next year, not this season, but I think next year it's a big possibility. Yeah.
Do we
it's the
think
roots
that'll
of the
be
game
good?
as well, isn't it?
What's that?
It's the roots of the game as well, you know.
Yeah. Hey, well, France. So I was thinking about, like, along that line of, you know, like the French stuff and whatever, is like, if that has its own league as well, then I know we're talking about the card scarcity and whatever there, but Champion, then all of a sudden those cards have got a lot of places to play, like all of them, because now there's a wee thing going on where playing with French and Italian cards, it's kind of, you play them in Champ, but now all of a sudden, if France was maybe to join that little group of the other 3, then it just makes that whole thing a bit more wide open. So I know that's quite an exclusive thing to those cards in those regions and whatever, but And I think the kind of wider point, McBride's kind of what you're hammering on there, especially with like, because like Contender and Challenger, a lot of that stuff is way more hardly felt, isn't it? In terms of, you know, like 40 Puigs and Messi combos, you know, and fair enough, Brighton stat kind of comes into it a little bit as well, I suppose. But I think for the league comps, Prem especially, like you're just kind of picking a stack and waiting for your week to come in. That's kind of the game in that division, you know, because the Prem's wild compared to like Bayern locked in every week to smash somebody, you know, kind of thing. So yeah, fair enough. We've been on for an hour, guys. I was late kicking off, and I do not want to go into the wee hours of the night. There was a few more bits and pieces I did want to talk on. I was wanting to talk about some goalkeeper stuff. I had a video going out earlier today. I thought it'd been nice, kind of chat and whatever. But sadly, time has kind of got away from us. Is there anything else you wanted to pick up on before we shoot?
I think one of the things I'd like to see in the game, and I don't know how feasible or affordable it is, but I totally get when the threshold went many moons ago, there was a lot of liquidity was lost, because I think you guys probably would be prime examples. You know, any money that you probably won, you probably did a lot of reinvestment. I know I did, and bought more cards, expanded my gallery. You know, I think at my level, I was always looking to go, you know, I was looking at, you know, guys like yourselves that had been in a bit ahead of me and stuff. And I was always trying to think, right, gallery catch up. You know, if you guys are sitting with some really good MLS cards and I'm starting to get maybe say one or two at a level below, I'm starting to see progression in my head though. I'm like, right, I see Quinney, I see Nellis, I see McBride winning, you know, podiums and prizes every week with these cards. And then I'm looking thinking, right, okay, so I get 1 out of the 5, for example. And then you start to get the tail end of the prizes. That builds something. When they removed the threshold, obviously, that took an element of sort of liquidity out of the market. What I think would be a good thing to do would be, I think this could maybe solve a couple of problems, because a lot of the problems we see are when people are, we've all seen them on X and some of the other social media channels, scored 450 points, getting a box, scored 470, getting nothing, scandal, you know. However, if we maybe had something like a 400 point, and that's, I'm just pulling numbers purely just out of the sky, but say a 400 point credit threshold, where it was 50% credits, so that Sorare obviously is going to get a net spend out of that, and Sorare's obviously then contributing something. Now, it's a credit for a card that is ultimately costing them nothing to create. You know, I'm looking and thinking, is that a way of getting an element of liquidity back in the market, both for themselves? You know, you could maybe couple it with, I don't know what the percentage is these days on the secondary market sale. Is it maybe 1 or 2% of the overall price, something like that?
It varies, but yeah, it's normally fairly nominal.
Yeah, it's fairly nominal. Could it be that just, again, it's all down to getting money into the game and liquidity into the game. That's the only way that sort of certain cards will rescue prices and things. And that would be the good thing for me. If they introduce something where people can win something on a more regular basis, you're more likely to play. You know, you play the national lottery 100 weeks of the year, you never win it, you stop playing it. You know, you play a game or any competition and you have relative success every now and then you're more likely to buy more tickets, if that makes sense, or buy you know, buy more things. And it can only benefit everyone if there's a bit more money floating about. You know, I think I've probably got the least amount of money I've ever had in my wallets for, you know, that, like that special purchase. You know, you went and bought 2 Wonder Kids today, Quinny. I'm looking and going, if I actually genuinely want to go and, you know, buy a player for 50, 70 quid, I'm probably having a deposit today. I'm probably, I don't know, sitting with 35 quid or something, which is the lowest I've ever sat with. And it doesn't allow you to be impulsive within the market. You know, Super Sam Dalby for United, I think he's only got 1 card or something out. But obviously, you know, I've got the rest of the players. I like the collection. I've got the badge on my profile. I'm proud. I'm wearing the shirt, you know, all that jazz. But if Sam Dalby, that's a player that I'm looking going, yeah, do you know what? He scores decisives most weeks. But, you know, it needs to be impulsive. It needs to be exciting. So, yeah, that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. And, yeah, I'm a sucker for an impulsive one myself, you know. So, no, I definitely feel that. But, yeah, yeah, great suggestion. It's not one I've got much brain power for. I'm kind of suffering. But yeah, I think the credit thing's going to come up once or twice. I like the idea as well, like maybe have a higher threshold than previous. Like I think that was maybe half the issue also, because I think when the select your target thing came in, like fucking I never hit it on super rare, like, you know, and it's because you never went for the bottom one, you know, which is the trick, you know.
With the greedy one.
You know, you always go mids and then you just miss it, you know. So, you know, they could definitely be a bit more tactical with it if there was ever some sort of reimagination for it. Last thoughts from you, McBride?
I think that's a good point. It's about an ecosystem. So it's about a whole ecosystem. So that's a new model that Sorare have tried out, and they've got to see what the effects of that are in terms of the model, because, you know, when you come towards the end of the season, people will try to sell because they know that they need to reinvest some money, and they might not necessarily be getting good prices, but it causes a sort of supply and demand thing with the market, and you see that there's less games and everything left. So we've got to give some thought. I think that the first thing they've got to do just now is give some thought to what happens to Europe for the second half of the season, because you'll get to the end of the season where things will just get worse. People think this is the worst that we'll get, but when you're getting towards the end of the season, those cards are only in season for 5 or 6 games, and they're really bad classic cards because they'll lose the season bonus after that. So that's got to be factored in, but it's got to be considered as an ecosystem. And actually, you'll think this is quite selfish, so I'll hold my hands up. But if you're going to introduce a threshold, you put the threshold as high up as you can. Because what you want then is you want people to be aiming high within the lower scarcities, but you want people to be looking up to higher scarcities and going, actually, super rare pretty good. So if people want to buy scarce cards, there's loads of super rare cards there now, but they are still quite scarce because some of those, you know, super rare cards are sitting at a level where there's only maybe 30 or 40 of them. So that's still a scarce sort of environment, but there's nobody really want to play at that level. People want to play it limited, or people want to play it rare because it's the big $1,500 first or whatever. So if they kind of walk the dog up through the game and you can feel some game progression again, then that'll make more sense. You might not need to do like mixed scarcities or pros or whatever, but there's stuff that needs to go. This shite where you go into your lineup builder and it's showing you rare cards in limited competition, it's showing you super rare, just fucking bin that right away. Honestly, just get it in the bin straight away. I mean, it's like you're aiming for simplicity. If you want to make things simple, make it limited, rare, so rare and unique for a start. Just make sure that
I disagree with that. I like playing down. I like playing down.
Yeah, but Quinny, you know, I get that, but it's supposed to be distinct scarcities. You like,
but I like the better ones having more. You know, they have more ability because they're bigger.
What use is that for the actual eco? I'm not saying that that's not a good thing for you being able to use your cards, right? Bear in mind, we brought in free entries and we brought in scenarios where if people didn't have competitions to enter, they're just playing rare teams and limited and everything. What does that do to the supply and demand and the actual prizes that are available? Like, maybe it's not a huge effect, right? But see this theory of that if you had limited teams and you can get a rare, then you can move up that as complete and utter bollocks. Because see your rare tier 3, your rare tier 2, they are no use whatsoever in limited. All you're doing is putting guys that you can't mix in back down to limited to get utility out of them. That's not doing you any. That's you getting utility, but that doesn't work.
Well, if I think it's the best way to kind of allow progression in some ways, like especially the way some card prices are now. Like I've got a few great examples in my gallery that I think, like, if you were on one and you're thinking about going to the other, or you're even just interested somewhat, even speculative wise, like the way it used to maybe be with a super rare, you'd buy one cheap just in the hope of maybe it's become somebody you can build around one day or something. Because like the other day I see Andy Robertson super rares on for 80 quid. Now, if I was in the market for an Andy Robertson rare at 50 quid, like maybe I just buy that one and play it in rare anyway. But then I've got it, you know, for, you can obviously bring that down to limited and do the same example, of course, you know, on a smaller scale. But this game week, I've got one limited goalkeeper, but I'm playing 3 limited entries with all my extra James Forrests and Kyogos and everything, if you get me. So I've got 4 seasons worth of them all at the moment, you know. So it's very cluttered when you're in the lineup builder. I do agree. Like, it just means you need to start at the top and go down. But that's the way I do it, because like if you start at limited and you've got red, blues, and blacks flying around, then yeah, it will definitely melt you. So I kind of fight back with you on that one, because I think they've actually done it quite well. Like a unique sort of MasterCard to me. That's the way I kind of thought about it when this first came in. Like, that can go anywhere, you know.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. What I mean is,
fair. Well,
how's it good for the, what I get that it's good for you. Again, it's good for me. Again, it's good for Pranksy when they run out of lineups. They're putting fucking midweek. There's a super rare guy of somebody that's worth $2,000 and limited. But how's that good for the actual ecosystem and what's happening with Sorare? Because you're just creating more and more lineups. Like what the big problem with this just now is that when they've done the all-star stuff and there's 3 lineups for each, it's brilliant to use all the cards, but then people are like, there's 45,000 entrants in here and I'm getting insane scores and I'm winning nothing. So you've got to bring it back to an actual ecosystem. Does that make sense? And what you've got to do is you've got to make sure that when you move through the scarcities, it's kind of worthwhile for moving through the scarcities. There's people just now don't really want to move into rare at all. Even though they're more scarce, they don't really want to move into rare. And there's people, nobody wants to play super rare. Most of the people playing super rare are people who have been playing super rare and just kind of stuck with the cards, are people who maybe they do have money and they're coming in afresh. But in the past, when they introduced a threshold, people wanted to buy super rares. They wanted to move up because they seen that there was there was a threshold and stuff there. So I'm not saying that you need a threshold and limited. It's the opposite. You need incentives to move up through the game, and then there's some element of game progression. And maybe even rather than that, we'll drop cards down. There would be some other mode there where you can play a wee mix. Like, you know, I guess it is a mix just now, but why not make it a mix where you get a small benefit from having the upper scarcity or whatever, you know? You get like a wee 5% boost or whatever. You play your rare and limited just now, it's just worth the same. And for me, like if I've got a Brighton collection and I've got all these Brighton cards, there's no point in me buying another Brighton rare unless I'm buying the collection, because the collection bonus doesn't mix and there's the XP race. And so I don't think that's a progression model. I just think it's dead confused. I don't think it really actually works. So people think it's good because you get used their cards, but like I'm using my cards, but what's that actually achieving? And I'm not winning anything with them. It's stopping me listing them, but I'm not winning. I'm not having any fun with it. I'm putting out 70 lineups a weekend, but by tomorrow, most of them are actually hidden. Like I'm like, there needs to be a refocus on the actual ecosystem of the game, and it might take time, but also there's got to be some changes to. It's not just about putting 100 lineups out or whatever. That's not the game.
I still think anyone that plays limited would swap their limited gallery for a rare gallery if they got like the same people, you know. And I still think that, like, yeah, there's problems further beyond that, right? But in terms of like, if you're going to buy a different scarcity card, if you're so rare, you want to be able to have that available to as many interested people as possible. And for you, if you are going to buy one card that's totally different from everything else you own, you don't want it to be a lead weight around you, you know, where you've spent like 40 quid on the Robertson rare rather than 4 quid on the limited or whatever. At least it's like, well, while I've got it, or until I get the other guys, or until if it's a keeper, for example, it could be a backup keeper. Well, until that goalkeeper comes good, then I can stick him in training, or at least he can mix with what I've got already. So I do think it works the way they've got it, to be honest.
There's no cap.
Not perfect, but
yeah. There's no caps.
What I did, Quinny, that's a very good point, actually. You know, see, when you just mentioned there about having one player that just doesn't fit in any of your lineups and things, and that was one of the things that I tried to do when I was originally trying to make I tried to make up a couple of years ago. I tried to make the step up from rare to super rare. I played super rare for I think 4 weeks over the Christmas period when it was the Scottish lineups. Amazingly, I won two cards, which I was really happy with. But what I was thinking about was that when I was trying to look for players, I was trying to identify under 23s. because obviously if you're picking under 23s, then even if it's a champion under 23, I can put it in with my, at that time it was, Champ Asia and Champ America and stuff and things. So that, I guess for anybody maybe trying to step up or maybe move from scarcities, I think maybe quite a logical route would be to look at some under 23s, because at least while you maybe can't play, say, Champ or Bundesliga or whatever, you might actually be able to start, if you accumulate a few of them, you might be able to start playing an under 23 team just to try and make the transition, and then you move them into their actual elite league as such. So it's just a route, just something I've done myself, just trying to bridge the gap.
Yeah, I think the big problem is the stars thing. Like the meta game is to have stars. So like if you there's people who are moving down from the bottom end of rare to buy star limited. And when you come out of getting to the top of the star limited, there's no cap competitions or anything. So the competition you move into is about having stars. Every division in rare is also about getting the top end achievements. I'm not saying that stars will be stars is a bad thing. The issue is that the lower down divisions are also about having the best lineups as well, which is fine, but the best lineups could be the best lineups that are beating that cap for that weekend. They don't have to be the best lineups, as in you need 5 star players. That's the problem with game progression. There's like people actually are moving back down to other scarcities rather than actually thinking about moving in some way through the game. So
do you know what, you're spot on. I'm one of them. In the summer, I looked and thought, I really, obviously I could see the prices had changed quite a bit, and I toyed with the idea of selling half my rare gallery to try and fund one super rare team. And instead, I looked at what was on offer in limited EPL, new in season. And it was more money for limited in EPL than it was for in season rare contender. I have to remember what one's what. Contender, where all the Scottish was, Division 5, Division 4, Division 3, were all a lesser payout of prizes. So it was more advantageous for me to look and try and play EPL with a decent stack for the same amount of money. So I should have been, in theory, I believe that I should have been aiming to be rare to move up the way, like what you're saying. And instead I'm looking going, wait a minute, I can go down the way and have more chance of winning money. So that's the, it doesn't make good business sense if people are looking and going, do you know what, I might win more if I put a absolute top-notch, Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool in-season limited team, rather than looking and going, do you know what, if I put together, say, just we'll use them as an example, put an Inform Aberdeen team at the moment in rare Division 3 contender, you should be winning more because you're playing a scarcity up. That, that's my take on it. And that then has the knock-on effect for guys like yourselves that have played, with 1, 2, 3, 4 super rare teams. And I'm guessing for you guys, like what incentive is there for you guys to be looking at like lots of unique teams, which is you guys moving up? I can't see it at the moment.
No.
yeah, so
my uniques.
Yeah, so mine as well. Yeah, so that's, and like obviously it's brilliant that like Pranksy's in the game and Pranksy's ploughed in a lot of money, but the problem is that although Pranksy's playing a different game, he's playing the biggest Ponzi part of the whole site because there's nobody buying his prizes. So all right, he's winning every tier 1 unique that's about just now, and that's difficult because it's an area of the game where people are doing well and somebody wants to come in and invest and might not do as well and all that, and I get all that, but there's nobody that actually wants to buy what he's winning. Even if he's buying a tier 1 or whatever, he can win that, he can use that to win more, but there's nobody else as part of that ecosystem. So what do? Do you try and attract people to come in and pay money into that ecosystem at Unique? Or do you think, well, actually, there might be a part of the game that people might want to move up from super rare? And at the moment, that's not what's happening. People at the bottom end of Unique or whatever, like, we want no part of this whatsoever. And actually, this is something that was discussed. And I specifically said that there's no way that you could run the top end of the game with 3 entries. Okay, I can understand why you can get away with 3 entries in limited or whatever, but see, at the top end of the game, what's the real need for Unique with 3 entries? What you want is a Pranksy B in a DFS or whatever. Like, you want different people competing against each other. You don't want one person that's just playing, because that person wins and that's great and they're hoovering. But then who else is there? And that's I think there needs to be some thought given to the actual model. And like you were saying, they've went right for, obviously they sell 1,000 EPL cards and that's where they'll make their money. And I understand they've got to put money into that and stuff. I'm not suggesting they take money from Limited and then they put it elsewhere, but you can't really have a scenario where the top end of the game's coming in and the rest of the game. Like, it doesn't look like even attractive for the outside. You said you were attracted by, look at that, like, look at the prize. Like, if people see the money's changing hands, they get a bit of excitement with that. And even if they never reach that level, they might still want to buy into it. And what's happening just now is it's like penny stocks.
Yeah, and that's the reality. I honestly remember it vividly. Like, it was probably Quinny's video that I stumbled across first. And I remember, like, immediately speaking to like Chris and Spectre and guys like that, Mickey Finn. These guys have all, got big, large galleries and stuff. I remember looking at the video and going, he's just won $2,000. And they're like, nah, he's not. No, that's like real money. That's the thing. And that excitement is sitting waiting at, I remember early days, and I remember sitting first, very naively sitting first on a Saturday night on a leaderboard, and then everybody on Sunday passing you. But I remember the absolute adrenaline of my mates all messaging, you're first. If it was, and you're looking at that point, and the prize must have been like $2,000 or something. And you've got your mates texting you. My mates don't text me at all about Sorare now. I hide from them now. It's like, I do have friends, even though I wear this badge.
Yeah. I've got to bring some excitement back. I think that's what I've done aimed at with the jackpot prizes. Like, I do get that. That's what they've aimed at. And obviously there'll be other game development stuff. But I think that they've got to introduce an element of like game progression and ecosystem. I mentioned ecosystem a lot because I think ecosystems, what you were talking about, where you were talking about if you win something. So this whole model of you've got to hit the absolute top score has to be there at the top couple of divisions. But beneath that, you've got to give some use to the rest of the cards. And there's 85% of the cards just now are completely and utter toilet paper. And if that continues, there's no game. That's got to be addressed. You've got to have people looking at the weekend and thinking that's a good fixture for X versus Y. And it's not about being stars, it's about the fact that X is going to beat Y, but X could be 15th in the table and Y could be 20th in the table. That's where the ecosystem is. It's not all just about the top players. And top players will be taken care of by supply and demand, because there'll just be enough people want to buy them because it's Vinicius Junior or whatever. That's the way I think it's got to operate. So
my final point, just very, very quickly, because I know it's getting pretty late and stuff now, but Quinny, you need to probably host like I don't know if you remember back in the late 90s, Ernie Walker did like an SFA Scottish football think tank. I remember responding to it by email. This was when email was not long out and the CompuServe was probably your internet provider type thing. But Quinny, you should do that. Maybe one video and get 10 bodies on or something like that. And it's one of these think tanks of every single thing that anybody can put forward and people can vote it up, vote it down. I don't know, something just
a think tank.
Do you know what the answers are more than likely in there somewhere, but the answers will definitely be from the people that are playing the game rather than probably the people that are making the game.
Definitely a great idea for down the road. Definitely, I've definitely heard that reference before. I don't know if you've mentioned that before on a podcast.
Yeah, I think I have. Yeah,
I definitely had that. I definitely had a wee bell going off at the back
loads
of my head.
Bearded Scotsmen on. What could go wrong?
I know. Tell me about it. It's been an absolute riot. Thanks to everyone that's joined us. Fist bumps to everyone that's watched this live, and to everyone that's watched this after we've been live again. Thanks to all you guys. Russ McBride, absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming on, especially before the jiggery pokery earlier on with the timing and everything. So appreciate it. And go fuck Friday night, everyone.
Go fuck.
Go fuck.